today's video. My name is Jodi. If you're joining me here for the first time, I'd really like to give you a very warm welcome. It's so lovely to have you with us. Today's video, I have been excited to share with you for months. I first heard this story at the end of July, and when I listened to this woman's story, I knew I needed to have her on this channel. So, without further ado, I'm going to get into today's inspirational and encouraging faith story just for you. Oftentimes, when we read the Bible, we see men and women with extraordinary stories. We tend to forget that they're ordinary people, just like you, just like me. There are people living today that have got amazing faithful testimonies and stories to share. And I'm just so excited that I got to interview Jules Vidas because her story is epic and amazing and full of strength and courage and grit and determination that only can come from the Lord. I will put a link to her full story in the description box below. That's a podcast. If you would like to go and listen to that, I really encourage you to do it. I couldn't stop listening. It was amazing. So really do yourself a favor and go and listen to that her story. If you want to hear about how God can take the dreams that He puts on your heart and use it to change your life, this story is for you. A bit of background information. Jules' story all takes place around a race that is run every year from the city of Durban to the city of Maritzburg, which is roughly, it changes year to year, but it's roughly 89-kilometer marathon. Ultra marathon is what they call it. The Comrades Marathon is the toughest and most epic race in the world, and those who take part and participate are next level athletes. I am so honored that Jules has given up her time and she spent the morning with me to do this interview. It's really, really a hard thing to share your faith with the world, and she has done that, and I'm so grateful and I'm so honored that I get to be a part of the story. So if you want to give Jules some extra encouragement, hit the thumbs up. Let's get into the interview. Okay, right. Coffee or tea? Coffee. Any special kind of coffee?
Jacobs. Not a coffee snob. No.
Not at all.
No pot coffees, no.
Okay. How many pairs of shoes do you own, Jules?
Oh, I have no idea. Have absolutely no idea. Probably, I'm not good with letting things go, so I have ancient pairs and current pairs, probably about 30.
Okay, wow.
Yeah.
That's a big cupboard.
Is that bad?
I don't know.
Yeah. Ooh, yeah.
I don't know.
No, that's but a lot of them are old.
Okay.
Yeah, you can buy more pairs of shoes before you have kids.
Yeah, you can.
After you have kids,
you gotta wear them
it
out.
decreases. So then you've got to hang on to your old ones. Yeah.
And how many pairs of running shoes do you have?
Oh, okay. I have 6 pairs. I've donated 3 to people my old pairs where people didn't have shoes.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah.
Okay. Is that included in the 30 or excluded?
That's excluded.
Okay.
Because they're special shoes. Yeah. You make a plan to buy those, and they're the most expensive.
Yeah, they are. They really are. And then the last get to know you question: if you were a superhero, what would your superpower be? Besides being a mom, because we all know that moms are
yeah,
like.
I mean that's
superpower
does
right
it
there.
Does it get better than that? No. What superpower would I have? To be able to eradicate unkindness, because I think that's one of the hardest challenges when you're a mom.
Yeah.
When either your child is unkind or other kids are unkind to your children, what that actually can do to your heart.
Yeah.
When having to deal with it.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, you're catching me here with these questions. No prep for any of this.
That's all, we're in the safe zone now. Okay, so you have always wanted to run Comrades since you were a little girl.
Yeah.
Can you give us a quick overview or timeline of the things that stopped you from running Comrades up until 2018?
I think the long and short answer of that is life. I married my childhood sweetheart at 22. we did a lot of traveling and lived abroad for a number of years. Very sadly, after 13 years together, our marriage broke down and we split. A year later, I met my husband, and answer to many years of prayer. We were blessed with 3 children in 2.5 years.
That's
and
awesome.
Anyone who's a mom, I don't need to explain the chaos that comes with that.
Yes.
So everything's a blur since then. But when our littlest was pretty newborn, I tried to get into my running, and at my first 21-kilometre race, I tore my labrum on my left hip, and that led to a surgery. I was out for over a year, but I think the long-term damage of that was that the kids were 0, 1 and 2. I wasn't able to do any of the physio or rehab, so I lost that mobility in my left hip, and there's been a long-term repercussions of that. My mum had
Not to mention just like carrying 3 babies back to back.
Yes, absolutely. Well, speaking of carrying, I couldn't actually carry them for the first 6 months after my hip surgeries, and they were, as I say, 0, 1 and 2. Our house resembled a creche, 3 in nappies, 3 on bottles, 3 in cots. So it was a very, very challenging time. My mum also, we discovered she had a melanoma on the base of her heel. She had her leg amputated. So there was a lot of additional pressure there of me trying to juggle the kids, my business, supporting my mum and dad, and helping them with this massive change in their lives. So, life happened. Yeah.
And where would you say you were with God before 2018? Like, what was your relationship like with Him then?
I would say in a season of drought.
Okay.
With 3 children, we're outnumbered. So there's no simpler way of putting it other than going to church is an absolute mission.
Yeah.
Because if the one doesn't want to go to Sunday school, or 3 don't go to Sunday school, so you can't actually listen to anything. So not getting to church like we should, and also just not having time and space to actually connect with God.
So being able to act in faith always starts with hearing from God first, and then you're able to trust and follow through with action. But when did you know that God wanted you to run Comrades in 2019?
The day the date was announced. It was to be on my 42nd birthday, and that for me was a big enough sign that this was my year.
Yeah. There were some major milestones in your, from when you decided to start your training to up until the point when you ran, the 11 months of your training. What were those? Can you tell us a bit about them?
I think I'll say normal, but I sometimes think there's nothing normal about our family. Curveballs that you have with motherhood and challenges. Our middle child has a severe sensory integration disorder. So up until the time that he was stabilized on his medication, it's been nothing short of epic. But so all the usual curveballs, but I think of most significance in that period was discovering that our daughter had hearing loss in her left ear, and following an unsuccessful surgery that she would need to wear a hearing aid. And I mean, I say this in the talk that I gave, but please, I'm so mindful that this is definitely not the worst thing that can happen to you, or the worst thing that can happen to your child. But for me, it was a big one, because it actually brought to the surface so much sort of latent pain. It brought to the surface so much other stuff, and I realized my drive for perfection, and this was a big blow for me. It was not what I dreamt for my daughter, and it knocked the wind out of my sails. So that would be the biggest.
Okay. And during that time of your training, did you ever have any moments where you're like, oh God, why me? Like,
not so much why me as why my little girl, why my son, why our family. Later, when with my injuries, I did do a bit of a why me, but more so why my children, why my child. And I definitely did.
Okay, I think that is so normal. I think when we have those feelings, people feel guilty and they feel ashamed, and But it's so normal. We're human. Like, that is a normal human response to pain and suffering.
Absolutely.
So, yeah. You mentioned in your talk that when you were running alone, that regardless of the weather condition, it was your outlet to
connect with God.
Thank you. To connect with God.
Absolutely. I found that it gave me the chance to be still and quiet enough to actually be spiritually mindful. And that it was the first time in a very long season of my life where I actually felt like I came up for air. I was away from the chaos of kids, my business, people, and I was alone with God. And it was
quiet.
Absolutely.
So from listening to your talk, to me it sounded like during that time you were very real and very vulnerable with God, just in your emotional state. Can you share anything about that?
Yeah, I think I really was. I did have some very emotional runs. It was, again, as I say, a quiet time where I could reflect on things in my past, reflect on what I was going through, or what we were going through with Zana, and my anger around it. I had a lot of runs where I cried the whole way, and it was almost like a catharsis of just being able to release stuff and emotions inside of me. So definitely, I was very emotional. There was no holding back of tears and feelings, and
what did the process of learning how to trust God through all that emotion actually look like?
Sure, that's a loaded question. I think it just vulnerability. It was I was vulnerable, and I had to learn how to relinquish control. So I'm a real A-type personality. I like all my ducks in a row and to have control of everything. And I realized with my injury, with Zana's hearing, thinking, well, we'll get her the best ENT, she'll get this sorted. No, there are actually things way beyond our control. And actually having to step back, and instead of praying for the things that I wanted, actually just saying, God, please take this and do what you will with it, but please take this. So it was, I think, the key was surrendering control and taking a step back of not having results, everything being results driven, but rather that it's a process and a journey, and surrendering that journey.
Tough. That is super tough. That's a hard thing to do. Okay, so after all your long months of training, you finally got to the point where you did your root tester, and victory. Like, it must have been the most amazing moment of your life.
It was. If you have a dream of comrades and you envisage how you'd feel on the finish line of the actual race, I think that's how I felt on the day of the root tester. It was an absolute victory. I felt this was 56 kilometers from Hillcrest to Maritzburg. I did 90% of it on my own. Obviously, it was a massive group of people that ran, but I ran exactly according to what I had planned, of holding myself back, being mindful of not going too fast and landing up with an injury. It was absolutely incredible. It was the longest distance of my life, and what had seemed impossible a year prior, it was amazing. And in my mind, I thought, that's it, it's in the bag. The 9th of June is going to be epic.
This.
I was right about it being epic, but it definitely wasn't in the bag.
So you're like right on track for comrades, and then you went from that glorious achievement to one of the biggest disappointments, disasters. Can you tell us a bit about that?
So 6 days later, my first run back, thinking I'd given myself the 6 days of rest, and went for my first run back, and as I started, my pelvis just didn't feel right, neither did my knees, and I thought, it's just that it's still wearing it from a big distance last weekend, but I got a few kilometers in, and it was like I was clubbed on the side of my knee. My left knee went, and I literally could barely walk, let alone run. Never bailed on a run ever, regardless of injuries in the past, but I couldn't bend my leg properly. So disaster. 6 weeks before.
So
that moment was probably, I don't know if you knew then, but that was maybe, you could feel the loss of your comrade's dream, like in that moment. So then over the next 6 weeks, because it was 6 weeks to comrades, hey?
Yeah.
Over those next 6 weeks, did you saw lots of doctors and physios and specialists, and what was their kind of take? What was their opinion?
Mostly that I was mad, but yeah, that if the cortisone didn't work to shut off the pain in the areas that there wasn't a hell of a lot I could do. There was no amount of physio that would have changed it. I had a bursa on the left side of my knee, I had ITB on both sides, and I had a tear on my iliac crest on my left hip. So
Impossible.
Yeah, impossible unless I took a hell of a lot of drugs, and yeah, or a miracle.
Yeah. From what I heard, it was like, this is not going to happen. Like, you need to start resigning yourself to the fact that this is probably not going to happen.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And can you tell us about your emotional state over that time?
Absolutely defeated, heartbroken, and just so disillusioned. How could my family, my kids, my husband, myself have invested so much in something for the last 11 months?
Yeah.
And because it really is a family thing to take on
Yeah.
a commitment like this when you've got small kids. And my husband had been so much on board and such an amazing support. And now, 11 months in, to think, well, is this what it was for? Is this where it ends?
Yeah.
Just absolutely gutted. Yeah.
So to me it seems as though during your training runs that God was leading you to a place where you could fully trust Him and fully like surrender your dreams and the desires of your heart to Him.
Yes.
Realistically, your comrade's dream was over. You couldn't run more than 6 kilometers without your body saying, this is not happening, Jules. So God had other plans for you. In the last 6 weeks before comrades, you had a lot of people speaking into your life about different things. Did you ever have those kinds of encounters where like people spoke directly to you about stuff, encouraging words from God in the past before you had started training?
I think I had signs, and definitely there were, scriptures or moments or people that crossed my path. But I felt like my receptiveness to all of this was almost heightened. Because I was asking God to lead me and to guide me and to show me what I was to do, whether or not where I spoke about in the with the marathon, in my talk, not in here, whether or not I was to run it. Had I made it about me? Was I actually meant to do this, or was it completely idiotic? I was asking Him, actively asking Him for signs.
Yeah.
So I was so much more in tune and so much more receptive
and connected.
Suppose, that's it. It heightened my awareness of them, and I was obviously then more receptive. So I think that possibly they've always been there. Sometimes we are shut off to them.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or preoccupied.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just distracted and not
absolutely
connected.
Yeah.
When did you know that you were still going to run?
On the same day that I thought I knew I wasn't going to run.
Okay.
So on the morning where I had my last attempt, so I didn't run for the 6 weeks before comrades, bar 3 failed attempts, and it was on that last attempt where my knee went within 2.5 kilometers, and I literally, I had trouble walking, let alone running. And that night picked up.
That's crazy.
Picked up a
Sorry
book.
to interrupt you. Yeah. That's crazy. In the morning you're like, not happening.
Yeah.
By the evening,
I picked up a book. I have my little books that I can just pick up and open anywhere. When you have kids, you never finish a book or start and completely finish a book. So it's ideal to have those books where you can pick up, get a little pearl of wisdom, and that's it.
Random pages.
And it was this book. I won't read the whole thing, but just this has got absolutely nothing to do with running, and yet the page that I picked it up on that night, it's a long section, but it says at the end, and it was Jesus saying to one of the disciples, Peter, I still have a race for you to run. I know how you're feeling, but you're still included. I still have a plan for your life. I'm going to give you the power to begin again, to become a great champion for me. God says the same thing to you today. I haven't forgotten you. I have a great race for you to run. Get up and let's go. and the fact that it wasn't even it was actually a race.
Yeah.
It was a run. It was like he had to do it so deliberately
Yeah.
and so blatantly.
Yeah.
And that for me was absolute affirmation
Yeah.
that I was going to, at the very least, be at that start. I'd
Yeah.
earn my place at that start.
I mean, like, how much more confirmation do you need after that?
Absolutely.
That's like word for word. You have a
Absolutely.
race, you are going to run.
Yeah.
Crazy.
And not a race for something, a race to run.
Yeah.
And it's not a running book.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So Comrades is an unthinkable race for most human beings. It's difficult if you are healthy and well and you have no injuries. So all of a sudden, your race became 1,000 times harder than anybody else's. It became
Well, I don't know about
God's-
anybody, but yeah, I mean, it's difficult for a lot of people, and I know there's, I'm not a unique hero.
very modest. You literally couldn't run 2Ks.
Yeah.
And now you had to run 90.
Mm.
So it was going to be a challenging race for you. Like, challenging doesn't even begin to describe it. It was going to be extreme. It was now a God-sized goal. Like, without God, it was not going to happen. So there was no way you were going to be able to do it on your own. Can you tell us how you were feeling at the start line on the morning of the race?
Absolutely calm, more calm than I've ever felt for any of my other races. The focus of my day when I woke up was, and honestly I really felt just a stillness over me, an absolute, it was like it was beyond me. I couldn't determine the outcome of the day, and just the sense of deep gratitude that I was going to, regardless of the outcome, I was going to the start of the most incredible race, the longest race, the oldest race, the most epic race in the world, not just on a South African scale, and that I was able-bodied and that I'd earned my place at that start. So just such gratitude, and realizing that it very well wasn't about just that day. It was what I had actually discovered and the growth that I'd had within myself during that season of running, and what the whole journey had given me, and just this enormous gratitude. And then I just kept on with scriptures, and I mean, I said it all in my talk, which you'll hear, but the analogy of light, I had that repeatedly affirmed for me, light, and being clothed in light and being a light, and that was a vision that I carried with me the whole day.
Awesome. I love that you had unintentionally postured yourself so that you could receive a blessing from God. When you are grateful and humble, God, you're a safe person that God can bless. He's going to give you that blessing, and it's going to be appreciated, and you're going to be grateful for it.
Absolutely.
So many times people want a blessing, but they're not ready, and they're not ready to receive it, and they're not actually willing to do any kind of work for it or endure anything to receive it. They're too busy making their own plans. And so your heart on the day, for me, was just the most beautiful example of a heart that is fully surrendered and full of faith towards God. Your knee gave in 4 kilometers into the race. Did you have a doubting moment, like, how am I going to do this?
Absolutely. I had 83 kilometers to still go.
Yeah.
And I think that's really when the race began for me. I knew that this was it. So I had reached the point that I reached in the trial runs prior, and all I could do was just focus on getting to a next step.
Yeah.
And
next little increment.
so the first thing I said to myself was run until it's light. I did that, and it's again all within my talk. I saw my friend who had been with me and stopped on the side of the road on my last failed attempt, and she was there. She was the first person that I saw, and that just spurred me on. I thought I didn't make it past 2.5 Ks the last time I saw her, and now I think it was at 10 Ks that I saw Amber. And then I thought I just had to get to my husband, and he was in Pinetown, And he burst out crying and said how proud he was of me, and there was absolutely no ways that I was going to stop in front of him.
Stopping there.
No stopping there, and I just couldn't with all that he had sacrificed.
Yeah.
And then I knew that I was going to see my dad and my brother on Fields Hill. And my dad's actually just had a hip replacement. He's since had a spinal fusion. And there was my mum along the way with her one leg. So I think that spurred me on a lot, knowing that I had to get to people that were actually far worse off than me.
Yeah. So one of the most important things that I took away from your talk was the fact that you said you had to keep your mind stronger than the pain. Can you tell us how you did that?
First of all, having the wooden crucifix in my hand for the 87 kilometers, but I carried that cross with me the entire way. And that way I was kept in tune 24/7, if you can use that expression for an 11 and something hour run, of the pain that Jesus endured for us on the cross, his hands nailed to the cross, that extreme pain for me, and reminding myself of how he suffered for me. So that crucifix was one of the key spiritual weapons as such that I had for that entire run. Sure. And then always reminding myself of other people's stories, the people that are not able to run, and that although my legs were excruciating and I was in a lot of pain, I could feel my legs, and there are some people who can't, or my mom who only has one leg. So
so our goals and our dreams often lie outside of our comfort zone, and that's why it's so important that in order to move in faith, we're willing to step out of that comfort zone. This is where we really start to see what we're made of. God uses every detail in our life. He uses this person to speak here, and he uses that person to speak to you there. Absolutely. And he weaves everything together like a beautiful tapestry, each event in your life. Can you tell us, what is your big picture takeaway from this whole experience?
That God is able to perform anything, and whatever you are doing or pursuing, if God is at the center of that, anything is possible. I think also what I realized was his hand is in the minutest details. He really has a hand in everything, if we have the eyes open to see it. And of the entire journey, the most important thing for me was that I realized, and every mom I think this will resonate with, you have to allow yourself the time and the space to connect with God. If you don't, you do find yourself in a spiritual drought, and that coming up for air and making making time for that quiet time and that stillness with God is just so important, because it brought to me, so something that was a goal to run Comrades actually landed up being the catalyst for so much change in my life, and it landed up being the catalyst for carving out time routinely to get to this goal, but actually that time gave me so much more than just a Comrades medal.
This woman is undoubtedly one of the most faith-filled women that I've ever had the privilege of meeting. She absolutely encompasses what it means to live a life full of faith and fully surrendered to God. She's a faith hero, but she wouldn't admit to it if you spoke to her face-to-face in real life. If you enjoyed this video, I would really, really appreciate it if you could give a thumbs up. Also, comment, send Jules your congratulations and your wishes, and she'd love to hear from you too. And I'd really love it if you would subscribe so we can stay in touch. I'll see you next time for another faith